Go ahead, roll it. I want to thank you for being here. We have Brad here at CreditSense, who's stepping in for Merrill Chandler. Okay, he normally talks about the credit stuff, but he's got somebody working with him. Brad is going to be stepping in for Merrill. He's going to give us a good sense of what it takes credit-wise to get you back on track, to get you a good low rate, and have this all work. So, come on up here, Brad. Give us a little rundown.
All right, as Dan mentioned, I'm Brad. I'm with CreditSense, and what we do as a company is we work with investors and small business owners to leverage their personal credit profiles so that you get A+ papers and yeses from lenders no matter what type of investments or businesses you're working on. We work with a lot of real estate investors to get them these lines of credit that are actually lines of credit that you have full check writing access to. They're not credit cards, and they're going to be at the lowest rates once we optimize your credit profiles. The challenge that most people run into is they don't realize going into business that they are going to personally guarantee almost every loan they put their company's name on until the company is running $2 to $3 million a year in revenues. Banks, since 2008, they're just not letting companies stand on their own, is ultimately what it comes down to. And that's because a lot of people bankrupted companies, and banks took a huge beating on business lines of credit because everybody was trying to save their own personal credit after the 2008 downturn. So that's what we do. We work with profile optimization. It's not credit repair. I'm going to get into this. We take a look at and we optimize your entire credit profile so that you can get those 800+ credit scores that are fundable and you can get lender approvals. And so one side note as we get moving here, we're also going to be doing our business presentation this evening. And like I said, we work with all of our clients to get $100,000 to $1 million in business lines of credit they have full check writing access to. And we'll go into that this evening at 5:30 as the last presentation moving forward for the evening. So, with your personal credit, it's all about being fundable because credit scores don't determine fundability. We have clients that come to us with 800 scores because they just got denied for a loan. And I'm working with one client right now who she's bewildered that she's in the high 700s and she's just getting no after no after no. But you'll see in a minute why that can happen and how that can happen. And some of you may have experienced that. Some of us, we work in the hard money world where we go, my credit doesn't matter. But you will still get the best rates and you'll have more opportunities, even with hard money non-traditional lenders, when you have a better credit score. And so Merrill, as Dan mentioned, is the owner, the founder of our company. He started this process 22 years ago with Lexington Law Firm, the largest credit repair company in the country. And he split off shortly after because he realized you just can't credit repair your way to an 800 credit score. And so he developed credit optimization. This is his intellectual property. And in essence, he reverse engineered the FICO algorithm so that we know what it takes on a case-by-case and trade line-by-trade line basis to get you to an 800+ credit score. We're the only company in the country that does this. We don't have any competition. There's no one else out there that has this technology. And it comes down to this one concept that Merrill has always worked from. Can you win a game you don't know the rules to? Can you? No. Right? If you don't know the rule, pardon?
I said not consistently, you get lucky.
You might get lucky, right, exactly. You might get lucky once in a while, but if you don't know the rules, typically, no, you can't win. And most of what we're taught in the credit world is at the very best misinformation, sometimes misleading information by the very people who are scoring our credit. And that's something to really take into consideration. We were at FICO World just, 2-3 months ago now, and while we were at FICO World, we were able to sit down with the people who create the FICO algorithm, who create the software that scores you. And just so you know, 90% of lending institutions in the United States use FICO scoring software. there's 10 to a little bit less than 10% who use something else. And so we're sitting down, and probably not supposed to point this out, we're sitting down with that guy, and he's actually the lead developer, the principal on the algorithm. And this is what he told us. He goes, well, he actually said a few things, and one of the things was, promise me you will not quote me on this. But he was talking to Merrill saying it's unbelievable how far you guys are beyond anyone else that's in this space. We're the only consumer-facing company that FICO is working with like they are. Merrill is in the process of signing NDAs and doing a program and piloting a program with them to work with smaller banks because they don't really mess with anybody or have clients that are less than $1 billion in assets. And so there's an entire market out there that they're not even touching. And so they want to have somebody who can come in and actually train those companies. And that's in the works and it's in the process right now. But every one of FICO's clients are some sort of risk assessment company or they're lending institutions. We were the only consumer-facing company at FICO World. And when we sat down with, whoa, that wasn't supposed to happen. When we sat down with yeah, right? It's one of my favorite places. When we sat down with the CEO, he sat with us for about 30 minutes and then gave his team the okay to go ahead and talk with us and answer questions, and they set up private meetings with us to be able to talk and give us information and really answer questions without giving us their secret sauce, is what it came down to. And so it was actually very eye-opening, and it was a real experience to be able to be in that space and get the information right from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So what does that look like to us? Well, now this is not working. This is fantastic. Everything's falling apart. Well, fantastic.
Yeah, but all these and all skills powered down the
Yeah, there we go. All right, so this is what we're going to look at today. And now I'm going to have to talk faster. So if you have questions, write them down. I'll be happy to answer them at the end. But we're going to look at what personal optimization is. It's credit reporting, scoring, and underwriting combined. It's not just one piece of any of it. It's all of it combined. So let's look at credit reporting. And this is where the entire process starts, and this is where the wheels fall off the quickest when we start talking about credit and fundability. Because the system is simple, right? You submit an application, it goes to the lenders send that application information over to the bureaus as an inquiry. You get hit with an inquiry that costs you credit score points. We're all familiar with that. It's called a hard inquiry. Now, there's also a soft inquiry that you can use. That is a personal inquiry that's not going to ding your actual credit score. So if you're checking your own credit with like a myfico.com, that's a soft inquiry. It doesn't hurt your credit. Anytime a lender checks it, it's a hard inquiry. You're going to get dinged a few points on that. So the inquiry goes to the credit bureaus. The scores that you receive, when they say you're a 738, you're a 750, that's not from here. It's actually from the next point, which is the FICO software. That's where the scores are. And FICO has created software for each of the bureaus independently that follows the same algorithmic scoring process. And so the scores, the information, the raw data goes back down into this FICO scoring software, and that's where your scores are. And that comes back to your lender and says whether or not you are a good risk. And that's all it is. Are you a good risk to give my money to? Yes or no is really how it comes down, right? And then, of course, we go into underwriting, which is a whole different part of the process, and we'll talk about that. That's over here. And those are the people who truly give you the approvals. Now, there are two ways to clear underwriting. You can clear it automatically or manually. You want to clear it automatically. How many of you have ever submitted an application online and instantly you knew you were approved?
Yes.
Yeah, automatic underwriting. What that means is the data you provided that went up to the bureaus matched what the bureaus had on you enough that you could be automatically approved. If you've ever done that and you were kicked out, either you have terrible credit or you have enough factors coming in based off of what you submitted on the application and what the raw data is, that it creates yellow flags, warnings, that the system goes, I'm not 100% sure. And so it bounces you out of automatic underwriting into manual underwriting. You never want to be in manual underwriting. The minute your file goes to manual underwriting, is anybody in here an underwriter? No? Has anybody ever met an underwriter? A couple of you. Fantastic. That's more by 100% than we usually get in a room. If they're a loved one, I apologize for what I'm about to say, but underwriters are like little trolls, and they live back in, like they're under the bridge, and they're deciding whether or not they're going to let you pass the bridge, right? And it's this whole concept that we typically never get a chance to meet them, because they're always behind the scenes, and their job is to say, can I give you money? Are you a good risk? Yes or no? And when they have their eyes on it, now they can scrutinize everything. That can be to your benefit, but it also can be to your detriment. Because once it's in manual underwriting, your likelihood of approvals for a paper goes down dramatically. So we never want to get into the manual side, but this is a key component of how that works. And most of us were never taught that from the time you submit your first credit application, you should submit every other credit application exactly the same way. We weren't taught that. Because there is a perfect credit identity that exists, and the algorithm scores it perfectly to 850 or 900 with some of the industry-weighted scores. If all of us could make that perfect credit profile, we'd have 850s all day long. But because we do little things like, in my case, if I said Brad Burnet and then Bradley Burnet, now I have two identities. I'll be hard pressed just with two identities to get an 850. I might get an 847 and 848, but I'll be hard pressed to get an 850 because now I've got this alias out there. We're never taught that. That's not something that we're told. We should be told that in high school so that we know submit all applications the same, because there is a version of FICO that is an application scoring software that will kick you out of the process here. It'll kill your entire application. You're done. You won't even make it to manual underwriting if there's too many discrepancies between what you're submitting and what the bureaus have. So we have to be diligent with that, but we're not taught that. That's something we need to clean up now. And that's part of what the process is with optimization, because approved and denied depends on so many factors. The wheels can fall off in every way I just talked about. They can fall off here, right? You start paying any data conflicts, boom, the wheels fall off, your likelihood of approval goes down. Any data inaccuracies here, the likelihood of approvals go down. Over here, we just talked about it. If you have an unfundable profile, it's simple. You're not going to get approved. Even if you have a 750, a 760, and 800 credit score. Now, approved at the level you're trying to get approved at, right? Because if you have an 800, an 850, you can walk into a car dealership and likely get an automobile. Now, you may not be able to get a Mercedes S-Class, but you can get a car, right? So you'll get approved. But is it approved at where you want to be approved? And that's what we find with our clients. They come to us with these high scores, and they just got denied trying to get a $50,000 line of credit or a $100,000 line of credit. Or we had a guy recently who was trying to, it was a small portfolio on a couple $100,000, maybe 250, 275, and high 700 scores, couldn't get approved because of his profile.
Is he not getting approved because his earnings aren't congruent to what he's trying to borrow?
Many factors. In that case, was not his issue. This guy, his debt to income ratio was actually pretty awesome, and he didn't get approved for a couple other things. But this is where the wheels start to fall off. So the solution to all that, to making sure all that comes into play together, is credit profile optimization. That's what we do. We take profile accuracy and combine it with profile fundability. We hit the sweet spot so that you're fundable no matter what lender you go to. Conventional, non-conventional, doesn't matter. We create that optimization so that you're fundable. Now, how does that look with credit scoring? Because we've been taught our whole lives, right? 720 is a fantastic score. 720, if you don't know, is not a paper anymore, meaning it's not the highest approval that you can get when you, like mortgages. Automobiles, you can still get pretty good loans at 720. But if you're going for a mortgage, you're now a tier 2 borrower. So your interest rate just went up, fees will go up, everything just gets a little bit more expensive as you drop in tiers. Tier 1 is 760 for mortgages. And that changed, anybody want to guess when?
2008.
2008, right? That's when it changed. So the big question is, are all scores created equal? Nope, they're not. And I let the cat out of the bag, right? 90% of lenders use FICO scores. FICO, and then there's the FACOs, all the others. And this is a phrase Merrill coined years ago because they're just not equal. These FICO scoring algorithm, it measures 40 characteristics and gives you a very solid assessment of risk, and they're the Microsoft of credit scoring. They have such a marketplace, such a footprint, that these other scoring softwares, they're coming along, right? Some of them are garbage. I'll just tell you that right now. Credit Karma is not a great one. If you use them, sorry. It's not terrible, but you can't take that and walk into a bank and go, am I going to get approved? You may or may not. There's a story of a guy who just sued TransUnion in a class action lawsuit, actually. But they won because he didn't read the contract fully, but he was suing them because he got his scores and then went to the bank, or went to an automobile dealership to get a car, and his score was 100 points less than what he was carrying on paper. And so he got upset, and it was their fault, and blah, blah, blah. That's not neither here nor there. But the reality is he had a score that was not a FICO score, and when he went to the bank and they used a FICO score, didn't get approved. So these scores, they're not equal. They don't use the same scoring algorithm. They don't measure the same characteristics. Some of them might only measure 10 to 15 characteristics. FICO measures 40. So they're not equal. And that's why when we work with people, we use FICO scores. MyFICO.com now actually has, it's the consumer-facing side of FICO. They figured out they need to take advantage of that market. And they provide you 28 industry-weighted scores so that you know what your scores look like before you ever head to the bank. When we get to the bank, there's been a long-standing, and I've heard it personally, I was probably taught it as a kid, that the banks are against us, right? They're our adversaries. We got to figure out how to get one over on them. Our banks really are adversaries. Truly our adversaries. They're not. Because how do banks make money? When they lend. Right? So they want to give you money. They would love to give you money. But they make money when they lend money.
Can't you say that the rates being so low right now, the banks are hesitant about wanting to loan, they want the rates to go back up before they will, that's why they make it so difficult for people to qualify?
Yes and no. Does it make it more difficult because the rates are so low? It's a catch-22, right? I believe, and it's proven through a little bit of research, that it's more about the regulations that have come in since 2008 that are creating this difficulty of lending and creating it's what we call a lender's bullseye, right? They want to give you money, but you have to hit the bullseye. You can't be out here in the outskirts just cutting the edges. You have to be right in the middle. And most of that is from regulation, because the catch-22 I mentioned is that while the rates are still low, if they don't approve you, then they don't make money. Now, they're not going to make as much, granted, but if they just sit back and wait for rates to go up, then they're out of business. But the regulation that's come in, especially for bigger banks, is real tight. And that's one of the big themes that was at the FICO world, how regulation is controlling so many aspects of the lending process now. So you got to be dialed in. You got to be very, very specific with your information and your accuracy so that you can get funding. Now, how does that look? And let's talk about rates. Well, even in low rates, FICO predicts that if you're a 690 to a 710, about average for the nation, you are a tier 2, tier 3, which means they being the banks, can make more money off you because they can charge you higher fees, 20 to 30% higher fees. And so then, let's say they make $500 off of this. And it's actually kind of astounding how little money they make off of an individual account on an annual basis. It's not what we would think. You know, oh, they're making thousands of dollars off of me. No, they're really not. 500 is actually a little generous in most cases. Now, mortgages, bigger loans, obviously that looks a little bit different, right? But if they want to make that same 500 for somebody who's tier 1, 760 plus credit profile, to make that same $500 on the fees that they can charge and the interest rates they can apply to that type of a borrower, they have to lend you 2 to 3 times more money. So they have to give you more money to make the same amount. And that's why tier 1 is, that's the sweet spot. That's where we want to get, tier 1 plus, so that you can get the best rates at every opportunity of approval that you submit an application for. So lenders want you to be down here. I'm not going to say it's a conspiracy. I don't want to go that far. But it may not be a coincidence that the average of Americans is at that level, tier 2, tier 3. Only about 15% are tier 1 or higher. So there's something to that. So to work with the bank, since it's not a true adversarial relationship, how we do that, how we create that win-win, is by what I've been talking about, hitting that lender's bullseye, that funding bullseye, so that we can get the best rates. That comes from credit profile optimization. That's the answer. To make sure everything is being reported accurately and precisely in your credit reports. Now, underwriting. Underwriting is a sneaky little beast at best, because it really works like this. And it may not be 20 points. I know several credit unions are anywhere from 25 to 30 points, and many banks are at the 20-point range. But what happens is you come in with your application, and they go, okay, so we need 20 points to be able to approve this person for this loan. Now they come into us, and they have a minimum of 3 points for each category, so it looks like this. Employment, 3 points. Debt load, 3 points. Down payment, 3 points. Debt to income ratio, 3 points. Credit score and profile, 3 points. So if you come in with a tier 2, tier 3 score, you're going to hit this 15 points. They need 20 before they can give you a yes. So if you didn't automatically have 20, you're out. You're in manual underwriting. How many of you have purchased a home or a mortgage, a property or anything where you've gone to the bank, you've given them your information, and they come back a week later and go, hey, can you get us $5,000 more for the down payment? Have any of you ever had that happen? Yeah, right? So why? Because you came in and you had 15 points. And the underwriter looked at it and said, hey, look, if you can get them to give us $5,000 more, we can get to 20, I can approve it, and it'll be approved at X% interest with whatever the fees are that they charge. Now, why didn't they just tell you at the beginning, okay, here's where your scores are, you're going to need to give us 10,000 instead of 5. They don't tell you that in advance because they want you to walk right up to 20, and that's it. Because at 20, they can say yes, And they get to charge you more in fees and higher interest. They don't want you to be higher than 20. So they'll do what it takes to get you right to or as close to 20 as possible, but not below 20. And that's why there's that back and forth that we often have experienced or seen other people experience. So tier 1, if you've got an 800 plus, that's going to be 15 points on its own. So you walk in, you're 27 points. This is where that automatic approval comes in. Now, mortgages, rocket loans may be given a little more of this automatic concept a run right now. But for the most part, you're going to go through underwriting with mortgages, right? They're big dollar loans. It's going to happen. Most other loans, business lines of credit, you can get automatic approvals on business lines of credit. That's one of the concepts we work with our clients on, is to use the concept of the velocity of money on the business side so that we can actually grow their business lines automatically without additional income verifications or credit score verifications. And so having this right here, and keep in mind, you get approved at many levels before this, but having this right here gets you more automatic approvals, which means more money, which means you can do more deals, which means you can take on more business projects, whatever it is. The ultimate goal is so that you can bring in more revenues. But that's what that looks like. That's why underwriters don't want you to get 15, 20 points. That's why banks prefer you have a little bit lower credit score so that they can give you the approval, yeah, but so they can get the most out of it on their end. And that's how that looks. So I talked about this difference right here, automatic versus manual. The brilliance of it is even on the business side, because like I mentioned, you're going to personally guarantee any business loans on your business entity until you're making $2 to $3 million a year for 3 to 5 years. That's just where we're at in the banking industry right now. That's what the environment is. So we can now, because there's the business side. It used to be, some of you are familiar, Dun & Bradstreet, paid X, right? You pay on time, you get an 80 paid X. And that's the gold standard. If you pay a little bit early, you get a 90. That's how they measured whether you were a good business borrower. Now they have Experian Small Business, Equifax Small Business, and Dun & Bradstreet has actually partnered with FICO. And they have FICO, Small Business Scoring System. And so they're all moving towards this algorithmic scoring, which has enabled them to now have automatic limit increases based on the algorithm, not just, did you pay us on time? Good. Right? It's a much better, it's a more precise system, which enables you to get more money out of it. And it makes it easier for us as the borrowers once we set the groundwork. It's a little bit of work up front, but once we set that groundwork, it's a clean, smooth process moving forward. So you get to stay in automatic underwriting if every field on your application matches credit bureau data. Every field. If it doesn't, you get popped into manual underwriting. That's because of discrepancies, inconsistencies, yellow and red flag warnings that pop up in the scoring software. I started out saying this, credit scores do not equal fundability, right? You might get a car, an Amazon card, but you're not going to get a $100,000 line of credit from Wells Fargo if you don't have the right credit profile, even if you have an 800. It's just not going to happen. One of our clients, Kim, came to us, great scores, right? Every single one of them over 800. She'd gone out to get an approval on a business line of credit and was denied because this was her credit profile. Williams-Sonoma, Lane Bryant, Sam's Club, Home Depot. Wells Fargo is not going to give you $50,000 to $100,000 on your on your Home Depot reputation. They're just not. Now, will you get approvals? Absolutely. Do you want Express, Amazon, Victoria's Secret? Absolutely. You will get approvals from those types of institutions and or stores because that's what your credit reputation is. So we worked with Ms. Kim and we got her to the point where she, after a very short time with us, it's around 90 days, her scores were not only higher and more dialed in as far as the range, which is something that is important. Because the further your range is between bureaus, the less trustworthy you are to an underwriter, and it actually